The time I sat down, got comfortable, and really got into the episode of Attack on Titan and that Sawano music started to play, the episode ended, and I was just like, did that feel like 5 minutes to me? Like, that felt like 5 minutes. Like, am I the only one that actually feels that after watching this week's episode of Attack on Titan? But, let's talk about a few things. First things first, I just want to say that this episode has a lot of themes or callbacks to Season 1 of Attack on Titan. I highly doubt I am the only one to see it and feel it while watching this week's episode, because there's many scenes that are very reminiscent of the first time that our characters had to stand up against Titans, take them down, and save a town. I mean, the entire tower scene where all of them jump off the tower to fight the Titans down below is very reminiscent of Season 1. Even the stuff with Shadis coming in and saving the day with the new recruits is reminiscent of Levi saving Mikasa, Armin, and all of them. I really love what this episode has in it because it shows how far Attack on Titan has come, because, like, it's a decade-long journey. It's over a decade-long journey at this point, because Attack on Titan was a series that swept everybody's mind. When it first aired, when the first season came out, it made waves, like record waves. Even people that were not anime fans knew what Attack on Titan was, and it's just interesting to see, after a decade, how far the series has come, where the characters are at, and just the art style and animation being the best, honestly, it's ever been. I really love what this episode has in it, and I just wanted to take a few moments to really just say I love that nostalgic feeling I got while watching this week's episode. But let's back up from that for now, and let's talk about the main concept, or the big point of what this episode was, and that is seeing how our characters are able to get the job done, do what they must do despite the impossible odds, despite the grim situation, and things looking very bleak. They still do what they have to do. Seeing like John and all of them going in and taking out the Titans, and these Titans that they're taking out may be pure Titans that are just going to attack anyone around them, but we know who those Titans are. There's countless characters, a bunch of cast members that have been turned into those Titans, like for instance Commander Pixies, and when you see his Titan form, it really just hits you right in the face, because it's like, we always have known for a while now that Titans technically were the Eldians. They were our characters turned into Titans, and they've always been fighting themselves, and knowing that these people were unwillingly turned into Titans and they're now facing our characters, it just is unbelievably sad, because it's like, they have to do what they have to do. They have to take them down, because at this point, they don't know if they can ever recover, be back to normal, etc. So they have to protect the people they have on the island and bring them down. So seeing, like, for instance, all the characters taking down Commander Pixies and all that, it hits you, because it's like, that character's been with us for a very long time, and it's just sad to see such an iconic character go. It's kind of like, he's always had that role, that mentor role, or a really epic role similar to Erwin. We've seen his character kind of have multiple major moments throughout the story, and it's just sad to see one of the very few old guard of the Survey Corps finally gone for good. So yeah, just that scene really hit hard. And speaking of that, I have to say that the final sequence of the episode showing Annie is definitely something that is going to catch everybody's attention. I feel like everybody is going to be talking about Annie, because she is a fan favorite character. She was a major spotlight throughout Season 1 of Attack on Titan, and it's crazy to think that it's been like over almost a decade, or maybe over a decade, since we last saw Annie in the anime. Like, just take a moment to really sit down and think about that for a second, okay? It has been that long since we have actually seen Annie with new footage, like in present day, moving around with her voice actor, etc., without being, kind of frozen in a crystal. So it's fascinating that she is finally free, and she has a lot to really catch up on, because, I mean, like, there's so much that's happened. I mean, the last time we saw her, they literally were just now finding out that, people could be Titan shifters, like, for instance, finding out that she was a Titan shifter, and the series has evolved so much since that very point, and seeing her wake up, it's gonna be like a rude awakening for her to just figure out what is happening, who's on whose side, what's happening to the world, etc. It's very, very interesting, and I feel like a lot of people are really gonna shift and talk about that, because it's like, her character, she's very important for this final moments of the story, because, I mean, Eren is trying to end the world at this point. So let's talk about that. So Eren, as we know, he has pretty much become the villain. He is still our protagonist, but he is the villain of the story right now. He is wiping everyone off the face of the planet because he realizes that the only way to find coexistence or peace, technically, in the world is by annihilating the other side. Because there's been many attempts back and forth between both sides, the Eldians and the Marleyans, to where there could be potential peace, but always something messes that up. Old blood comes out and it just starts the whole cycle once again. We even get an opposite example in this episode of that, which I'll talk about in a moment. But the point is that Eren came to the conclusion that no matter what good deed is done, there will always be a bad deed to just overcast everything. No matter how good you try or how much good is done, there will always be that one dark deed that is done that really just stains everything and makes things so much worse. And so Eren is taking it into his own hands to wipe out all of humanity that is not on the island. And I have to say, one of the big things that you can get from Eren's motivation and what he's doing, there's two ways to look at this. He's either trying to just wipe out everything because he realizes there will not be coexistence because one side has to be gone, or he's trying to rally humanity up to just face one impossible foe, to work together and set aside their differences to deal with the actual enemy at hand, which is technically Eren and the Colossal Titans. So that is food for thought to think about, but it doesn't change the fact, even if hypothetically all of them teamed up to work together, it wouldn't set aside all those old grudges, that bad blood between them, because eventually it would resurface if, stuff was dealt with. So that is something to think about. But anyways, the point is that Eren has really shouldered a lot. For instance, he is willing to sacrifice it all, even his own image throughout the history books, for the sake of his friends. Even though he is technically a villain, and he is not a good dude at this point, because you can kind of look at everything that's happened within the story thanks to him, he is trying to do all of that for his friends. And it's sad to see, honestly, how far his character has come since the early days. Like, when we first met Eren, since we're talking about nostalgia and all that, he was just a guy that's like, I want to kill all the Titans. That's literally all he was. That was the only part about his character when he was first introduced. He was this whiny boy that was just screaming, I want to kill all the Titans, and, people didn't really like him. I remember when the first season came out. I remember when the manga was in its early stages. People did not like Eren. People absolutely hated Eren as a character, very similar to how people didn't like Gabby when she was first introduced for the final season of Attack on Titan. So when you see just Eren's character now, it makes you incredibly sad to see how jaded all of our characters have gotten. It's not just Eren, but it's our entire cast. Like, for instance, John doing what he's doing. When he kind of takes the initiative to get rid of Commander Pixis, it really shows that he's changed a lot, because he was always someone that couldn't even do the active killing to get rid of the opposing faction, but he was willing to take down his own commander that turned into a Titan. It just shows how, like I said, they've become jaded. They have become battle hardened. They are no longer the same innocent, naive individuals that they once were, and it hits you. And I have to say that this is a very emotional episode because of just everything it represents, because despite just the nostalgia, it really just shows the character development and character growth and the journey that the series has had to this very point. And I think that one of the other big highlights of this episode, which I hinted at earlier in the video, is Gabby as well, just to show once again that, Gabby, there's so much more to her than just her being maybe an Eren clone that's on, like a female, basically, and on the Marleyan side. Gabby is a character I think that many will be able to see instantly, that she has had so much growth since the final season of Attack on Titan began. When she was first introduced, she was very similar to how Eren was back in Season 1 of Attack on Titan. Eren was just an annoying boy that was just always screaming, I want to kill all the Titans, and not a lot of people really liked Eren. Not a lot of people cared for his character, even manga readers didn't. People absolutely despised Eren as a character. So seeing Gabby start off in a very similar way, but on the Marleyan side, we have gotten to see how her growth has been and how she has kind of changed a bit in comparison to Eren. She is not an actual replica. She is a kind of like what would happen if a character was similar but had different circumstances happen to them, and that is what Gabby is. For instance, this entire episode with her, at least towards the end, shows that she becomes very similar to Sasha. And as we all know, know, Gabby is the reason why Sasha is dead. And seeing, like, relatives or family members of Sasha stand up for Gabby, trying to protect her, and then Gabby protecting them, it shows that, you know, old blood, like blood in the water and bad blood between each other, can be settled sometimes in a peaceful manner. Now, obviously, this can't always happen. We have seen many different examples of this throughout the journey of Attack on Titan, but I like how throughout the episode and the previous episodes, we have seen that Eren has made his decision to wipe out humanity because the only way for coexistence is by wiping out the opposing side. While Gabby shows a different alternate, that there could potentially be peace, but at the same time, this goes back to the main narrative that Attack on Titan has shown time and time again, is that yes, there can be moments of peace, there can be moments of brilliance and happiness, but sometimes because of that one dark thing that happens, completely just disrupts everything. Everybody focuses on the negative, and they don't focus on that one positive that was actually really good. It's so easy to focus on the darkness in the world, and so when you see something like what Eren is doing, or what has happened to, you know, the Eldians or the Marleyans, you know, people focus on that. They don't care about these little nice stories that happens with Gabby and, you know, Sasha's family. So I do like the perspective of this episode, that it tried to show a different side, but at the same time, it once again reconfirms what Eren is doing and why he is doing it, because once again, everything else going on within the story, it's just taking the entire viewpoint kind of away from that scene. So yeah, it's a really good episode of Attack on Titan. It's very emotional from start to finish, felt like 5 minutes, and I mean, there was even an amazing scene with Shadis and how he kind of appeared and, you know, wanted to protect the new recruits. I think that was easily one of my favorite moments of the episode, because if you remember, we saw Shadis and his backstory a little bit of him feeling like a bystander. He felt like he wanted to be an MC, he wanted to be a great person, but he couldn't be. He couldn't be like Erwin Smith, he couldn't be like Grisha, he couldn't be like Eren, and he was very upset, very jealous, envious, and it led to a lot of problems he had throughout his life. But he eventually realized he was a nobody. He couldn't accomplish anything. But despite all of that, him arriving to the battlefield, standing up, and having that time to shine, even if briefly in the moment for this episode, is very beautiful for him to just, you know, watch over the new recruits. It's a really good moment, and it stands out personally to me out of anything else from the episode. But I guess I want to wrap up this video here. Tell me your thoughts, how you felt about this week's episode of Attack on Titan. Did you enjoy it? Did you hate it? You know, let me know your honest thoughts. I am super curious. But anyways, guys, be safe. If you enjoyed this video, you know, please leave a like. And if you want to see more content on Attack on Titan or other anime content, then, you know, please subscribe, because it'll appear in your YouTube feed. But with that, love you all. Be safe. Chibi out.